All right, you're on the arms room with Glenn.
And John.
I'm so happy to be back.
I'm so glad to see your smiling face this morning.
I listened to the show last week. Well, I didn't listen to it while I was playing. I actually listened to it this morning, and it was great, man. You guys did a great job.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, it was a good topic. I'm sad I missed that topic.
Yeah,
There's a lot to talk about.
Although I will honestly say I'm glad you weren't here for that topic, or I may not have gotten to speak at all.
I heard you talk more on the show last week than you might have talked in the last 6 months on the show.
We talked about that before we came in here.
All right. So welcome to the arms room from the wonderful, beautiful Cowtown studio here, courtesy of Cowtown Range, and brought to you today by AR500 Armor. Check them out at AR500armor.com. I have a new mini carrier. I bought this one for my son.
What?
Yeah, he wanted something for Mini Glenn to train in and start working with when we go out shooting. So I'm like, heck yeah, dude. So it's in wolf gray.
Dun, dun. Super tactical.
Super tactical. It's got the new lightweight 3+ plates in it, which are smaller than the normal 8x10s, but they are 3+. And we have seen these things stop some incredible rounds.
Yes.
When we were on location after the, what was that, a couple months ago, back in February, I guess, and we were shooting the AR500 armor plates with a myriad of different firearms. Mm-hmm. When the cameras turned off, we were like, okay, now we're going to shoot it with the stuff that we know it won't stop, and it stopped it cold. Mm-hmm. So I've been highly impressed with the 3+. Very, very cool. So, yeah, good stuff. Check them out, AR500armor.com. All right, it is Memorial Day today, John.
It is.
What are your barbecue plans?
Oh, I don't have any.
Shocking, neither do I.
What?
Where are you going to go shop today?
I may have to go to a Circle K at some point today, but that's about it.
Yeah, I probably have to get some fuel.
Yeah.
Memorial Day. What is it about?
It's not about barbecues and buying stuff on sale.
That's definitely true. It's also not about being a veteran. So don't thank veterans for their service.
I will throat punch you if you thank me today.
It is not about thanking veterans for their service. That's not what Memorial Day is about. Memorial Day is about those who didn't make it home.
Yep.
Right. And, we all have stories about that. So it's important to remember those things. Men and women who gave up their lives the greatest sacrifice so that we could do the things we do, like have a radio show and talk about whatever we want.
Yeah.
And after this, we're going shooting. We have a company meeting with Independence Training, and we're going shooting. Freedom. Right. And then after that, we're going to go
beat the crap out of each other.
We're going to go hang out with one of our favorite training groups and fight each other. Freedom. Right. It's all about that. And I wanted to read something real quick because it comes from someone I respect a lot, my dad. And my dad, as a Vietnam veteran, always has a lot to say during Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Mm-hmm. And so every year he always sends out an email to all of the family members. And so last night he sent this one out, and I wanted to read it. My dad's been on the show before a couple times, either like loitering in the background, or even sometimes he's even been on the mic and talking. And he's a great guy, so I wanted to read this real quick. It says, Memorial Day, what it means to me and what I would like for it to mean to my family. First of all, it is nice when someone tells me thanks for your service, but Memorial Day is not to honor veterans. It's a day to remember those who gave their life for this country and the freedoms that are enjoyed by its citizens. What I would like everyone to think about is that these young people, in most cases young single men and women, will never have the chance to watch their children grow up and then watch and enjoy grandchildren. As I think about watching my children and grandchildren grow and develop, my heart aches for their loss. They never will have the chance to show to loved ones that sunset again, or for that matter, watch the sun come up. To show grandchildren the wilderness, wild animals, and the great beauty of this great country with all its freedoms that they all gave their life for. For me, my memories of 47 years ago are of very young men who were just starting to form a true opinion of what life and the world were about. My heart aches for their missed chances and missed opportunities. The recent past wars that our country has called on its military to fight and die in has seemed to affect young families more than maybe my war did, and the pictures of young children and families that are affected by the loss of young fathers and mothers are heartbreaking. If you can't spend the day in remembrance, then spend a few moments talking to your children and others about the great sacrifice that has been made for their freedom. If you want to honor a veteran, ask him to tell you about friends that he lost. So I just, I want to read that from Dad because it's, it's straight from the heart of a combat veteran who, experienced those kinds of things and and watch their friends not come home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're here to remember today is about our friends who didn't make it home, not about the veterans who are still here. So, as you go about today, if you want to barbecue, great, go for it.
Heck yeah.
Just do so in honor of those who can't barbecue. If you want to go to the store and get something on a good deal, fine. But do it knowing that right and that freedom was paid for with someone else's life. Don't just do it because you get a good deal. Do it understanding the price that was paid to make that happen. Throughout today on the Arms Room Facebook page, and there's already been several of them posted. Throughout today, there's a lot of Memorial Day posts, pictures, and things like that on our Facebook page. So check them out because they really talk about some of the meaning that it is to us here about Memorial Day. I had an opportunity yesterday up in Prescott Valley at the Civic Center. They actually have an entire field full of American flags with all of the fallen military members from Arizona.
Oh.
And most of them, I should say, not all of them, because they didn't get approval for all of them. They go specifically to the families and get approval. 304 is what they have.
Wow. And
around each flag is a ribbon with service, the year of death, and the name of the person on the ribbon around the flag. And so, we were able to find some people that were important to us. And the guy who put it all together is the Gold Star father of Gunnery Sergeant Justin Martone, who was a Marine Corps EOD tech and was killed by an IED as he rode in a Humvee. So to sit there and listen to this father, I think about all the fathers out there, who've outlived their sons, all the mothers out there who've outlived their daughters. And to sit there and listen to this Gold Star father talk and tell his story it was a powerful experience. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet him. So, remember, these are the things that we're thinking about today. And if you're working or whatever, take some time today to think about it. It's really is important. All right. Before we all start freaking man crying in here. All right.
Ooh.
Let's
how's I got the allergies, man.
Yeah, I got some dust in here. Let's talk about our weekend, John. How was your weekend?
Good. It was relaxing. Didn't do a whole lot. Hung out, had a little barbecue with the in-laws. That's always fun. Did some tree shopping because after 6 years we're getting around to landscaping our yard.
Cool. Are you guys gonna put in a money tree?
No.
No? Are you gonna put in a faggot tree?
No.
Oh, okay.
A what? No, we're not. We're just gonna get some shade trees for the boys.
Okay.
How was your weekend?
It was pretty great, man. I was recovering from being gone all last week, but I had a great time up in Utah. I go up there a couple times out of the year to be a mentor to youth camp. We do wilderness survival and archery and rock climbing, rappelling, big wilderness hikes, all kinds of really cool stuff for all high school age kids from all over the country, and sometimes even internationally. We have a great time. We play some super competitive sports, so it's fun. And it's a good thing because these kids are all pretty high speed kids. So, none of them really chicken out on stuff. Like if you issue a challenge, they rise to it, man. So it's one of the reasons I like to go, with this particular group of kids and through this particular company. So it was great, man. I mean, basically you camp all week long and then do cool stuff.
So you had a good time at summer camp?
Basically, yeah. I was hanging out at summer camp. Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. I never did anything like that when I was a kid. I wish I would have because it was a cool experience.
My summer camp sucked. They're terrible.
So it was a good time. Anything else? What's going on in the world today, man?
I don't know. I don't watch the news.
Crazy.
I just refuse because it's terrible.
Yeah, I haven't really stayed up on the news, mostly because when I'm gone, I don't have service really or anything like that. So I can't stay up on the news.
Let's ask the soundboard guy. He seems to have a.
Hey, soundboard guy over there on your phone. What are you finding? I don't know. I'm checking my email. Funny, pretty much.
Anything exciting happened in the news over the weekend?
What's going on?
There's really not much going on, to be honest with you. It's been a fairly quiet weekend.
Oh,
okay. All right.
Which is a good thing, I suppose.
All right.
Yeah.
How's Baltimore doing? Pretty much been taken over, right?
Let me
by hooligans.
They burn it to the ground yet?
Yeah.
Not a bad idea. And then you can start fresh.
Yeah. Well, then those riders won't have anything left to do, and then they'll have to live in the super slums, whatever.
Oh, well.
All right. So today's topic is we're going to talk about how to safely form a local training group.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which is a really important thing to do. You know, the number one request, or I'm not going to say complaint, but maybe comment that we get from our students from Independence Training is that they say, well, okay, how am I supposed to practice these skills or improve these skills? Now that I've learned from you, you know, they've been with us for a couple of days or whatever, and they've learned these certain skills. And now they're like, how am I going to go practice this? You know, what am I going to go do? And so training groups are really important. You know, as instructors, we're kind of lucky.
Yeah, we kind of have a built-in training group.
We can have a built-in training group.
It's nice.
Like we said, after this show, you know, we're going to go have a quote-unquote company meeting, which is really us just getting together, talking a few minutes about what's going on with the company, and then
terrible shooting things.
Today we're going to play horse. I cannot wait.
I am terrified of this.
We're going to play horse on the long range, so it's going to be fun.
Oh, goody.
But you know, we kind of have a, like you said, a built-in training group. But we have other training groups. Like today, as an example, after the company meeting, John and I will be going and participating in one of the training groups that we belong to, which is a training group with students all from ShivWorks classes. And ShivWorks primarily focuses on close quarters,
bad breath distance,
and it's all of its members are all come from the training classes. And so, you know, we do it every 2 months, I think, or so. We get together for a couple of hours, you know, so it's a pretty mild training group, but it helps us just reinforce the skills that we learned. So that's just an example, especially since we're doing it today. It's a good example of what a training group should be. And so as I go down this list of kind of, you know, what we want a training group to be, we'll see that the training groups that, you know, John and I belong to are pretty much fit into all these categories. So first of all, you have to figure out what you want to accomplish. So let's say I have 6 things on the list.
Whoa.
All right. So for any of you, you know, keeping track, 6. All right. So
you're only holding up 5 fingers. 6.
Here, like this 6 right here. Bam. Pow. Think about that.
All right.
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever.
Take that back, old school. All right. So number 1. All right. Figure out what you want to accomplish. So
it's a good place to start.
It's a great place to start because a lot of people are like, well, I want to train. I want to learn how to shoot my handgun better. Okay. So how do you want to shoot your handgun better? Or how do you want to improve your survival skills? Or how do you want to improve your combative hand-to-hand skills? Or how do you want to improve your medical skills? Whatever. Like, how do you want to, what are you looking to do? Okay. You want to shoot your handgun better. Do you want to shoot your handgun faster? Do you want to shoot your handgun better from a combative standpoint or a competitive standpoint or a recreational standpoint or a hunting standpoint? Because in order for you to figure out what you want your training group to accomplish and the kind of members you want, you have to figure out what it is you actually want to do, you know, and kind of the level to which you want to take it, you know, how,
but
go ahead.
You have to start with that broad spectrum because you have to sit down and, okay, these are all the things I do in my life. These are the things I want to get better at. Okay, so I want to be a better rifle shooter. Okay, well, now that we've established that I want to be a better rifle shooter, well, do I want to be a better long gun rifle shooter? Or do I want to get better on my AR? So, I mean, you have to start with a broad category and then kind of narrow it down from there. Because if you start off in like this super tiny, very specific point, you're going to limit the number of people that you can find that are willing to put that type of work into that very specific thing as well. So you kind of have to have a broad, you know, concept of what you're going after. No,
that's a good point because unless you are drawing from a very specific group of people, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very hard to find those individuals that are going to want to do that very specific thing you're looking for. So, you probably should be a little more broad. That's a good point. Now, on that, finding people, you have to find others. So this is number 2. That's 2 fingers. All right. You have to find others with similar desires and training. So other people with a similar desire to do what you want to do, accomplish what you want to accomplish, but also who have the same type of training or at least some level of training that can
benefit the group.
Yeah, they can benefit the group. Because what you don't want to find yourself doing is a training group where someone in the group is constantly teaching all the others in the group how to do this. Now, while that's good, because a training group, you know, like let's say the 4 of us in this room are a training group, you know, Adam, who would, let's say, like just as an example, he might like be our driver or something like that, right? And then
teaches how to properly back a
I
truck
am
up.
number one, Adam. You're right. All right. No. So let's say we had Adam and Mason and John and myself, and we were all in a training group. Well, maybe Adam brings a skill that the rest of us don't have.
Right.
And so then he can teach us, so then on our next training group or whatever, he can say, okay, cool, I'm going to teach you guys the basics of this skill. Or Mason brings a skill, or you or me or whatever. And so you do want your people to go out, and it might be really great. Like, let's say Mason goes out and he takes a class with somebody on whatever our topic's going to be. And then he comes back and goes, man, I picked up this 1 or 2 really good nuggets from this class. I want to share it with the rest of the group. That's the benefit.
Absolutely.
But what you don't want to do is always, like, your whole group is always learning, because then you're basically a training organization. Yeah. And that's not really what you want. If Mason comes back and says, hey guys, I came back with this little nugget from this training class about, I don't know, this different shooting position or this different medical technique. Well, cool. He can just plug that into our already existing skill sets, and then we can start practicing or training on that one thing and see if it really works for everybody in the group or not.
I talked with John a little bit about this after the last show, and we call it cascade training, where one person goes out, they learn this thing, and they come back and they teach 2 people, and those people teach 2 people, and it keeps going down the line like that. So the cool thing about a training organization or a group is you don't all have to go to the class. You don't all have to shell out the money to go to a class. You send one person to that class, another person to a different class, and someone else to another different class, and you all come back together and teach each other the skills that you each learned at your separate classes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to cascade training. I like that. That's a good way to kind of cascade everything down, because what most people who maybe haven't been in those environments don't know is, like, in a law enforcement or even a military group, that's what happens.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I mean, when new, TTPs or SOPs get put into place in these groups or these agencies, units, whatever, a lot of it comes from this guy who just came back from deployment or went to a class or was embedded with this, unit from, the Brits or the Canadians or something like that. And then was like, oh my gosh, I got to show you this thing that these guys do. And it made things so much easier, faster, whatever. And he comes back to his unit and teaches it. That's how these guys get trained. They don't just, like, magically know this stuff. They're typically learning it from someone else.
Absolutely.
Were you say something?
I think I was going to, but then I lost it.
Okay.
I got run over by the train of thought of you.
All right. So, how do we find these people? All right. How do we find the people who have similar desires and similar training?
Not Craigslist.
Oh, come on.
Not Craigslist.
Why not Craigslist? It goes back to the broad spectrum. You can't pigeonhole yourself. If you've got a group of friends, I have a group of friends outside of this group of friends that I'm sitting here with.
All my friends are sitting in this room.
Yes, we know. But you talk to your group of friends, you find out, hey, what kind of forums are you guys on? Where are you guys going? Who are you guys talking to? Where are you guys hanging out at? Then you go and you kind of start to talk to other people through your other friends to see if they're interested in this. So, I mean, depending on what you want to do, there's no wrong way to go about looking for people. It's just once you find those people, there's a right and a wrong way to allow those people in.
Yeah, which is number 3, and
which we'll get to.
And still on number 2 though, I don't disagree with what you're saying, because you want to use things like local shooting forums. In Arizona, we have some great local shooting forums. John and I both belong to AR15.com, and we spend 95% of our time on that website in the Arizona hometown forum, talking with other Arizona guys, a lot of whom are vets, a lot of whom are law enforcement guys, a lot of whom are just good red-blooded Americans. And so there's no reason not to go to those forums and start to put up, hey man, I'm starting a little training group, looking for some people who might be interested to get together and work on whatever skill set it is you want to work on, and I bet you'd be willing to find some people who have something to add. Other training classes. We have students from our training classes. We have students from our training classes who train together on their own outside of our training classes. Why would you not want to, it's one of the benefits of going to training classes. You're going to find local, like-minded people taking these classes.
Yep.
And I know we've had students come to our classes specifically for that reason.
Yes, we have.
Veterans groups, if you're a vet and you really only want to hang out with other vets or whatever, there's great opportunities to do that. I know already through the Veterans Action Shooting Match that we've been doing with Concerned Veterans for America, and then we've got coming up again on June 8th, by the way, from 6 to 8. It's going to be awesome because we're going to be torture testing the CMMG Mutant.
Yeah.
And we are going to be shooting some long-range stuff. May or may not have a 50 out there, just saying.
What?
So, come check that out. But I know already through there, we've had several veterans make connections, guys who are like, oh, hey, cool, you're a like-minded guy. I'm a like-minded guy. Let's get together and do some shooting on our own. Great. You can make that connection through those kinds of organizations. Competitions, start going to a few shooting competitions. If you don't know, if you're totally stuck, like I don't really use forums, I don't really use social media, I don't really go to training classes. Great. Go to a local shooting competition and start talking to other local people who shoot. Hey man, I see you kind of have a similar style than me, or we're talking about stuff between, stages. And this guy's like, hey, I like to hunt and fish. I'm like, cool. I like to hunt and fish too. And now you're starting, you kind of have this bond, or so to speak, you have something in common. And now you can kind of start to broach the subject of, well, hey, I'm looking at putting together, a little training group. We're just going to get together and work on XYZ skills. Would you like to be involved with that? It's going to be, whatever, once a month or twice a year, whatever it's going to be. So there's so many avenues that you can find good people from. But like John started to say, and what we'll move on to now, which is number 3.
Good job.
That's 3 fingers. All right. Is you have to complete your due diligence.
Yes, you do.
You do not want to end up with a bunch of freaking psychos in your training group. You don't want to end up with people who are on their social media like, I hate Obama and all this kind of stuff, because you're like,
oh Lord,
whatever you think on the side is fine. Whatever you discuss at these events is fine, but you don't want someone who is you're going to be guilty by association, basically.
Absolutely.
So you're looking for a couple of things. One, when you find somebody, it's like, cool, hey, what forums do you hang out on? And then you go and you look on those forums and you look for their username and you see the kind of stuff that they're posting. Are they helpful and useful and at least respectful, if not kind to other users?
Even if they're not helpful or useful, are they at least kind?
Are they at least civil?
Yeah. Are they civil? Are they, or are they the guy that's always bashing somebody else that's new to the thread? Oh, well, that's a dumb question, or that was stupid, or screw this, screw that, screw you, blah, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. You don't want that guy in your group.
Yeah. You don't want that guy in your group because it's going to be the same thing at your meetings and stuff. And nobody likes that. Nobody likes that guy.
And it's the same thing with like social media.
Oh, yeah.
You want to go check out their social media. Even when, all my instructors, when they first, come to me, John and Mason, I do not a full on background check. I'm not like, give me your social security number.
No,
but I'm looking for, I go to look at social media, and from time to time, I still look at everyone's personal social media, because I want to know like what's being posted. I'm guilty by association. You know what I mean? So it's like, if this person's involved with me, the arms room or independence training, or even just me as a person, I want to know what they're doing. What kind of person are they? What are they posting? There's people I really like in this industry. I think they're great people, but I won't associate with them publicly because of the kind of things that they put on social media.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I can't be associated with that craziness. It's cool when you and I are in public or in private and the mics are off and there's no, no one really listening. We'll say whatever we want, and that's fine. But in public, man, you gotta present that kind of professional image. And to do a little bit of background check, again, not like give me your social security number and your last 3, places of employment. Like that's not what I'm looking for. But I want to look for some kind of references. Like if the guy says, oh yeah, I shoot over here with this club, or I do over here this competition, or I was a ranger, or I'm a cop, or whatever. It's kind of like, okay, cool. Those are all easy things to check out. You know what I mean? And I don't need to know like their full history. That doesn't really matter. I just want to make sure that they're not, totally and completely making stuff up.
Believe it or not, there are people that will lie to you about being special forces, about being a ranger or a sniper or a Navy SEAL.
Get out of town.
Or any combination of those.
Get out of
town. There are those people out there.
Google Don Shipley.
The good news about that is that there are also forums for all of those groups.
Yeah.
And you can go onto those forums as a guest with a name and ask them, and they will pass it around. They will come back to you with an answer whether or not the guy's legit.
Yeah, I mean, those are small communities. So if you have someone claiming to be that kind of stuff and he wants to join your training group, those are all small communities. They likely know somebody or know somebody who knows somebody. And even if you're in other certain types of units, like you probably know somebody who knows somebody. So it's not a bad thing to just kind of check people out. Again, I'm not going to go to great lengths.
No.
But making a couple phone calls, shooting over a couple emails, not a terrible idea.
Nope.
Just to make sure it's a person coming in. And we're not just looking, because obviously all the people in our training groups aren't going to be law enforcement or military only. So we're not looking to only check those kinds of backgrounds. But if someone says, oh yeah, I shoot over with this guy, or I hang out with that guy, or oh yeah, we know the same dude, then call that dude and be like, what's this guy like?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I don't care if he works at Safeway as a bagger. It doesn't mean he can't be in our group. We'll happily take him into the group. I just want to know a little bit more about them. Does the guy have like a DV charge? Is he known for getting drunk and beating people up at bars? I mean, like if this is
is he a felon?
Is he a felon? Yeah, exactly. Like these are the kind of things I want to know about this person before I invite them into a group where we're going to potentially be training them and, or maybe even sharing some sensitive information. Yeah. So it just kind of do, some due diligence. All right. So that's 3 out of the 6. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to finish up with 4, 5, and 6, and we're going to kind of talk about some of the things that you can do with the training group to increase skills, like just some ideas about shooting exercises and medical exercises and stuff like that. So we'll come back from the break. We're going to keep talking about how to safely form a training group. You're listening to The Arms Room.
If you need assistance or just want to help veterans by donating your time or services, contact them at info@patriothills.org. Again, that's info@patriothills.org. Visit patriothillsnewyork.com for more information about their services or how you can donate. Our veterans deserve no less. We can give it to them, and you can help.
You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets on Media Network.
All right, you're back on The Arms Room. We're talking about safely forming a training group and not ending up with psychos or annoying people or that guy that won't shut up.
Mason. What?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What was it we just talked about, being nice to other people in your training group?
No. That's not. It wasn't about being nice to the people in your training group.
I don't have to be nice to you.
It was about being nice to people on forums.
Yeah.
In person, we can say whatever.
I remember you saying you don't want that guy at your training group that all they do is make fun of people all the time. I remember hearing that.
No, you need at least one of those guys. Our guys, John.
You're welcome.
All right. So we talked about things 1, 2, and 3, which were figure out what you want to accomplish.
Yep.
Specifically or broadly, but still
Start
kind
broad.
of specifically.
Yeah.
2, finding people through competitions, training courses, forums, social media, etc. And 3, performing due diligence to make sure that this is the kind of person that leads a certain kind of lifestyle that you want to be associated with. You know, they're not going to have a massive personality conflict with you. They're not the kind of person that's going to draw unnecessary attention to you. Because remember, you are guilty by association.
Absolutely.
And so number 4, all right,
Yeah.
that's 4 fingers. Select a training location that doesn't draw attention to you or limit you.
Ooh.
So we're talking about any training location. Because again, we're not just talking about a training group for firearms, right?
Nope.
You might be doing combatives, you might be doing medical skills, you might whatever it is. Select a training location that's not going to draw attention, because what you don't want to be seen as is you don't want to be seen as like a militia group.
Yeah.
Or a prepper group necessarily, or something like that. So it's like, that's not necessarily the kind of attention that you want to draw to yourself.
Right.
So if your guys are always full up, showing up in multicam, head to toe, full kit all the time to do stuff, it's probably going to draw unnecessary attention to your group.
A little bit.
Right. So how do you do this? Now, we're blessed in Arizona because we have all this public land.
Lots.
So you can go out pretty much anywhere you want and get far enough away from people. You're not going to draw attention. There's also several ranges, like Cowtown Range is an example, where you can rent as a private citizen. You can rent a bay or a section of the range for, a pretty good price. And then you can train there. So it's like, hey, we're going to train here, and it's going to cost everybody, whatever it's going to cost, depending on how many people you have. And that's great. Now you can show up and you can do whatever you want. You're not really going to draw a lot of attention because there's, not a lot of eyes out there peeping you, and the people who typically are out there aren't those kind of people.
Yeah.
And then you're also going to have the ability to not be limited because, since it's a private range, we don't have some limitations of a public range. Now, depending on who you are, maybe there's an officer in your group and you can get access to the local PD range, or, maybe there's a military person in your group. You can get access to a lot of military ranges if you're not profit.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not for profit, you can use a lot of the military base. All the government ranges, like law enforcement ranges, military ranges, all that, cannot be for profit.
Nope.
But if you're just a training group or a couple vets or a couple active duty guys or whatever, or a law enforcement agency or something like that, there's a possibility you might be able to, get some type of access to these ranges. Not a terrible idea. Maybe you take one of your people in the training group and you have them go through like some NRA, like basic pistol class or something, become some kind of basic NRA level instructor so that you can then get NRA insurance for your group. And that's, $350 a year or something. So it's pretty cheap to have a couple $1 million of liability. And now if your training group is going, and then you have dues or whatever, where everyone pops in for the range time and also for the insurance. And now you do have that liability insurance, and having that liability insurance might help you get access to some of these ranges.
Absolutely.
So it's not a bad idea, and you just, again, you're still not for profit. You're still on a training organization. That NRA instructor guy, he didn't have to do anything. He didn't have to train or nothing like that. The NRA is pretty loose on what they allow. All you've got to do is keep your certifications active, and then once every 2 years or something like that, I think you have to teach an NRA class. And so he grabs all the wives or kids or something of the training group, and here you go, here's a free NRA class, and he teaches it to them, and he's certified, or met his certification thing, and then boom, he can keep the insurance, and you're in business, and then
fantastic idea.
Yeah. And then maybe some people in your training group discover, hey man, I'm really good at being an instructor. I really enjoy this. And it's, then maybe they can kind of work their way into the industry or the business somehow. So, there's a lot of pluses to having somebody, some kind of certification in your group. But the biggest thing is it's going to open up other opportunities for you as far as where you can train. Because there's plenty of states out there where you don't have lots of public land.
No.
And it's all going to be private.
Yeah.
And so if you
it's like on the East Coast. I grew up on the East Coast, and there's very little public land except for national forest and stuff. And even depending on where you live specifically, I mean, that's even extremely limited. I don't there was one national park within a drive of my house, but it was really popular and not a lot of areas to go and get away from people. So it might be a good idea to look into local ranges and even some local ranges. Like I know Ben Avery here, they have bays that you can rent to use that are not open to the public. So if you don't have anything else and there are no other options, go to a public range, approach whoever's running that range. Hey, can we rent one of your bays on like a Wednesday afternoon, you know, or whatever time that is, and just talk to them, because you know it's really hard for people to say no when you're face to face with them. I found that out.
Yep.
Don't email them, don't call them, go and talk to them
face to face, man. Now, also consider things like if you're going to be non-shooting skill sets, so combatives or whatever, consider things like a conference room at a hotel.
Yep.
I've rented conference rooms at hotels for all number of different types of training classes for anywhere from $50 to $150, depending on the conference room, depending on the hotel. And if all you need is a big square room with some tables and chairs because you guys are going to be working on medical skills or combatives or, you know, emergency survival or whatever, boom, that's easy. If you've got 10 members and it's $50 to $100, right? Everyone pops in a few bucks. Maybe you pop in a few bucks to get a catered lunch. You're in business.
National Guard armories.
Yeah.
You can rent National Guard armories for stuff like that.
Also consider things like library. Your local library, our local library actually is incredible. They have so many huge conference rooms that never get used. And they have all these small little rooms that are maybe like half the size of our studio here. And they're pretty small, but you can just use them for free, right? Because it's a public building. And so like I've gone in there, I've taught like private classes for first aid or like private CCW classes or, you know, things like that, where you just take somebody into the room or a small conference room. You got a handful of people and it costs you nothing. It costs you nothing to use that thing. All you got to do is get your name, you know, on the reservation form. And typically it's not that problem, not big of a problem. And I've done that here in Phoenix. I've used places in Tucson at libraries.
Yeah.
You know, so if you need like a quick meeting or a quick training group area or something like that, think about your local library. A lot of them have, you know, these really nice conference rooms and meeting rooms. So think about that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That's fantastic.
So, you know, you want to avoid things again where I like places where I can kind of shut the door, so to speak, whether that's a range where I can kind of close things off or a building where I can literally shut the door. I just don't necessarily, I don't want interruptions because.
So you don't want to do it at a public park?
I probably don't want to be doing combatives at the public park. Yeah, probably not. Now, would it be actually, I got a funny story about that real quick. So I was actually teaching a first aid class, a wilderness first aid class up in Utah. And for our scenarios, we were supposed to have access to this area to do our scenarios in. And it was just the weather and some other things like that were just not cooperating with us. So I'm like, right across the road from this building was a public park, right? And so I'm like, perfect. Well, it happened to be during the Ironman, because they have the Ironman up in this area we're at like every single year in May, right? And so I'm up there teaching, and I got a group of probably 8 people over there, and we're running through like emergency scenarios. And so I got people in like various wounded positions, and I got bleeding wounds going on and all kind of stuff. I can't even tell you how many people stopped and asked if we needed help. And that was a big learning experience for me. Like,
a little distracting.
When you're in the public eye, yeah. I mean, it's distracting. I mean, I started to get to the point where I actually peeled a student away and during their rotation of the scenarios and was like, all I want you to do is just handle traffic control, because I don't want anyone for real calling 911. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was admittedly kind of dumb on my part to even do that, but I was trying to make it work for the situation that we had. And I'll tell you what, that was a big learning experience for me. Like, being in the public eye is just not a good thing, you know, for those kinds of things. So figure out a way to close the door, you know, figure out a way to have some privacy. Be careful too about your operational security. You know, I probably wouldn't have a training group at my house, for example, unless it was like the guys in this room, or people that I really trusted or people that I really knew. Then I'll have it, you know, at my home or the office or something like that. But otherwise, I'm probably not going to invite a bunch of people I kind of sort of know to my private residence around my family and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, it's just think about that. You know, it might seem like a good idea because you've got, I've got the big living room or I've got a big backyard. We'll just do it at my house. Consider your operational security when you're doing that kind of stuff. You need to be smart about it. All right. So that's number 4. Select a training location that doesn't draw attention to you, but it's also safe. and where you have access to emergency services in case something goes wrong, things like that. Don't pick a place that's so remote that you have no cell phone service. It takes you an hour and a half to get to the hospital. If something does go wrong and someone does get hurt, you don't want to be in a bad spot. All right. So number 5. That's all 5. All 5 fingers on my handout.
Okay.
All right. So have a plan.
No.
Have to.
Why?
Because
explain.
If I don't have a plan, then it's just going to turn into a hangout group.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah. Many moons ago, I was really involved in the predator hunting world, and that was a big passion of mine. Still is, but I'm just not as involved in the industry as I used to be. And I was a member of several predator hunting clubs, groups, kind of like training groups, right? Mm-hmm. We would go out every month and we would hunt together and, compare notes. Every month we'd have a meeting where we learned different things. And here's what I discovered. Most of the time, those groups are just social groups. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want a social group. I wanted to kill some stuff, right? I didn't want a stupid social group just to hang out with, drink beer, sit around a campfire. And that's what most of these people wanted. They just wanted a social group where they could hang out and have friends and whatever. And that's cool. That's fine for them. That's not what I wanted.
Right.
So that kind of goes back to, steps 1 to 3, and that's find the right group, find the right people. Yeah. But that was, something that was kind of bothering me was we never really had an exact plan. It was just kind of like, all right, we're going to show up at this place, then we're going to go hunt, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it. And it's like, that's cool, man. But this kind of flows into number 6 a little bit, but have a plan. Right. Always. Make sure that plan includes everything from, and you don't have to be like, at 0300, we're going to be doing this, and 0345, we're going to be doing this. Like, you don't need to be that plan about it. But if at any point of explaining your plan, your knife hand comes out, too much plan, you're too serious. You do want to be relaxed and have fun. Yeah. But what were you going to say? Dude, you got to start taking notes or something.
I need to.
So have a plan of what you want to do. So like, let's say we met monthly. All right. It's going to be, okay, we're going to meet from 6 to 8 in the evening on Monday, second Monday of every month. All right. So at 6, by 6:10, we want to have everyone doing this. Everyone's quiet, paying attention to whatever, from 6:10 to 6:30, so-and-so just got back from such and such training class, and they're going to be presenting their new ideas to us. And then from 6:30 to 6:45, we're going to be talking about how to incorporate that in our group. And then from 6:45 to 8, we're going to be
practical application.
We're going to be doing it, Yeah. And then if you stay on time, that's a better way to keep your people in your training group engaged.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want it to just break down into a social club. You want all your people to get along, and you want them to have a good time, because fun is an important element of learning. And you want all that to be happening. But you don't just want to be like, hey, from 6 to 8, we're going to show up, we're going to do some shooting. Well, then all that's going to happen when you show up is a whole bunch of dudes are going to shoot. They're going to shoot for 10, 15 minutes. They're going to get bored. Mm-hmm. Some of them are going to leave. Some of them are going to start doing stupid things. Some of them are going to get distracted, etc. So it's like, if I have kind of a plan, I can keep the training group on point. It also helps me as I'm incorporating people into the plan. It helps those people be more invested in the group, and that gives them a little bit more ownership of the group. So it's like, hey, if Mason just got back from, attending ticket writing school, and I want to learn about that, then cool. From 6:15 to 6:45 in our training group meeting, he's going to give a presentation on what he learned and how he thinks that can apply to our group. And then from 6:45 on, we're going to laugh at him. No, I'm just kidding. But from 6:45,
I was going to say, you gave him an awful long time to explain it. You could have gone from like 6:15 to 6:20.
6:22. But from 6:45 on, we're going to be taking a practical application approach, and right. He's going to be kind of leading that. So it gives him a certain ownership of the group. You know what I mean? And that's a really important thing to consider. Having that plan and making sure that plan is followed. And we don't want to regiment it so tightly that it's people are like, whoa, dude, I'm not in basic training again. Like, we don't want to freak people out. But
a good example of this is right after I first started working for Independence Training, you and I would get together for training.
Yeah.
And I'd say 50% of the time we ended up doing less training and more talking because
we didn't have a plan.
We didn't have a plan. Mm-hmm. We would show up and be like, okay, well, let's work on a little bit of this, and we'd work on it for 15 or 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. Then we'd go back to reload, and then we'd start this conversation. And an hour and a half later, I'm like, oh, crap.
Yep.
Time to go.
Yep. And then we're like, oh, crap, we didn't do this.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, having a plan is always good. Always.
You know, it's important to note that most of the stuff that we're talking about with this, we learned by experience.
Yeah, we learned it the hard way.
So like, we're not just like coming up with this stuff like, this sounds like a good idea. No, this is how we formed our own training groups. This is how we recommend to our students that they form a training group.
Well, and another group that we were involved with for a while that everybody, you know, life happens, and I'm sure it'll continue to go, but it was a mutual assistance group of several small business owners.
Absolutely,
and, you know, we would get together, and it was like Monday mornings at like 0:30.
Yeah, it was pretty early.
But, you know, that was the time that fit into everybody's schedule. But we would get together and we would talk about, like, this month, you know, Glenn would do a presentation on marketing, and then, you know, we would discuss that marketing, and then we would talk about goals and stuff for our businesses and so on and so forth. And, you know, so having these types of groups isn't necessarily always about firearms or medical stuff.
Not at all.
Or, you know, it's any type of group that you can get together of like-minded people that you guys can share knowledge and ideas and basically make everybody better.
And in that group, just as an example of kind of diversity you can have in these groups. So that was our MAG business group.
Yeah.
And in our MAG business group, we had, you know, John owns Tactical Gear Company.
Yep.
I'm with Independence Training. We had a guy in there who does like screen printing, embroidery, stuff like that, but does a ton of marketing. Great with that. We had an orthodontist.
Yeah.
We had a pest control guy.
A pilot.
And a pilot.
Yeah.
You know, a big airline pilot. And so we're all putting our minds together like, okay, so cool. What worked for you when you were doing this? And what worked for you when you were doing this? And I, you know, I gleaned a lot from that, from the time that we were doing those meetings, because it was like, oh, that really worked for you. And that kind of leads us into to number 6. Bam, one finger down. What do you think about that? That's right.
Whatever. So number 6 for normal people out there.
All right.
Good Lord.
So have responsibilities and accountability. Have a set of standards. And that's where that MAG group was so beneficial.
Oh, it was.
And that's where our training group, like with Independence Training, for example, our instructors is I hold myself to a standard. And so as instructors, we hold our group to a standard.
Yeah.
And we say, like, if you're not able to do this, this, and this, then you're screwing up. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
you
And
are.
you need to work on this, that, or this. Otherwise, we have to seriously consider how serious you are about this thing. And so have some kind of standards. Now, we got to take our last break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the kind of standards, the kind of accountability, and some of the examples that we have of the kind of things we do to hold people in our training groups to a certain set of standards. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Arms Room.
Veterans served us, now it's time we serve them. As a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as a current military member deployed abroad, I would like to take a minute of your time to tell you about Patriot Hills of New York. Patriot Hills of New York is a nonprofit organization providing support to veterans and their families. They partner veterans in need with over 65 health and wellness organizations, community groups, as well as philanthropic foundations providing no or low-cost services. They've helped over 400 veterans through confidential referral services, assistance with veterans issues, employment placement, as well as educational opportunities. If you need assistance or just want to help veterans by donating your time or services, contact them at info@patriothills.org. Again, that's info@patriothills.org. Visit patriothillsnewyork.com for more information about their services or how you can donate. Our veterans deserve no less. We can give it to them, and you can help. Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in their life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552. Or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you were or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets on Media Network.
All right, you're back on the Arms Room on a beautiful Memorial Day. Remember, Memorial Day is not to thank veterans. It is not to just have barbecues or go shopping. It is to remember all of those men and women who died protecting our country, serving their country, regardless of what their mission was or their status in the mission or what their job was or anything like that. They said that oath, they signed that blank check, and then they cashed it. So remember that on this Memorial Day. Teach your children. Children are our future. You must teach them. Teach them what's going on. All right, so we're talking about how to safely form a training group. We've talked about so far the 5 out of the 6 things that we recommend based on our experiences.
Yes.
We didn't like pull these off a blog somewhere or just make them up as we're going along. These are things that are based on our experiences in forming training groups of various types, between business groups as we formed, combative groups that we're formed and participating in today, or even our instructor training groups. So we do have quite a bit of experience in this. So number 6, final thing, have responsibilities and some kind of accountability or set of standards.
I have one thing to say about this.
Go.
The first thing on that list for accountability and anything is be on time.
Yes.
If someone is habitually late, they're not committed.
Yep.
Give them the boot. Sorry, bro.
Yep.
First time you're late. Okay. Life happens. I understand that.
Get it.
Second time, one more time, you're done. So being on time is a big thing for me in all aspects of my life. You have to be on time for this thing. And that's an easy place to start with setting up those responsibilities and that accountability for your training group.
And also, how often they bail.
Oh, yeah.
If you got a training group and there's someone constantly bailing on you,
you're
probably not really that committed.
Yeah. Oh, I can't make it. I can't make it next month, man. I've got this. I've got a bunion on my big toe, and I'm baking brownies. So, look at responsibilities from that. Also, issue responsibilities for things that need to be done. So, as an example, in some of our training groups, it's like John mentioned earlier, our business group. Our business group. Everybody has a responsibility every month to teach something different, which means that's going to take some time on your part. Because if you show up unprepared, everyone in that business group is they're pretty dialed in. They're going to know if you prepared this 5 minutes ago, so it's like, if you do some preparation that might include reading a book or reading several books or, reading some information online or doing some research. And so have responsibilities for a shooting group. It might be, hey, your responsibility next month is to supply all the paper targets. And that might cost a little bit out of pocket. Or, your responsibility, next month for a combatives class is to, find us a new location because, we've expanded or whatever. So have responsibilities for people. Responsibility not only helps you to kind of prove people's commitment, but it also gives ownership. If someone's like, hey, I have to be there because I am the guy bringing the targets, that gives a little bit of ownership. Accountability or a set of standards is also incredibly important. Again, going back to our business group, which is a training group, right? In that case, it's like when we have accountability, we would say, okay, by next month, here's my goals. Well, then the next month, the first thing we do at the meeting is talk about your goals,
talk about what we did or didn't do. So it's like, if I make a goal and then consistently every month, I'm just like, oh, I didn't do it. I didn't get to it. Well, how committed am I really to this group? Am I really a benefit to this group? Now, I might be like I've done before where I said, man, I set at this goal last week. And as I was moving towards that, I realized that's not really what I want to do. So I went in a different direction. I did this. So I accomplished something on the way. I accomplished a different thing. Well, that's fine. But have some kind of standard and accountability to give ownership to the group, but also to make sure everyone in the group is serious about doing whatever it is you're doing. So if you're shooting, you may take a pistol or a rifle or a shotgun exercise or whatever and say, all right, the standard for this exercise is 3 minutes or 10 shots or whatever. And, you know, you need to be able to perform this and make it realistic. Don't take the fastest, best shooter in the group and make him set the standard. But
don't take the worst guy either.
But don't take the worst guy either. And don't even necessarily take the middle of the pack. Set a standard that's better than what most of your people are doing. That way they have something to work towards, you know, but have a standard or some set of accountability where, you know, people are working towards something specifically and they know where they stand. You know, if it's a medical group or something like that, okay, you need to be able to, you know, assess an unknown injury in any condition. So maybe sometimes you guys do it in the dark, or sometimes you do it, you know, outside when it's really hot or it's really cold. Maybe you do it out in the snow or something like that. And so it's like, all right, you have to be able to assess this unknown casualty and apply care, you know, to a certain type of standard within 4 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is that you want to do. You know, have a standard for your group. Without a standard, your group is going to just fall into this hangout group. You know, and without a standard, you can have a lot of people making excuses. Oh, well, I didn't do it because, you know, the bunion on my big toe or the rotation of the earth or whatever, right? And so
gravity's really messing with me today, man.
I didn't sleep a lot last night. Like, whatever, man. You knew what the standard was. You knew what the standard was. So if you don't have a standard, then there's not really any way you can hold people accountable. But if you have a standard, so as an example, typically what we'll do in our, you know, we've already talked about it for our business group. So what do we do in our instructor group? So typically what we'll do is we'll show an exercise. So like we do the 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3 exercise a lot. All right. And so we do the 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3 exercise. It's a combination of handgun and carbine. And you can actually see this exercise. I think it's in video number 5. No, it's video 5 of our AR500 armored videos. Because it's you and me running it the first couple times, I think. And I think Matt and I run it or something like that. But you can kind of see a variation of that, and we kind of explain it. That one's different than what we do normally, but it's, you get the idea. And so, you know, what we do is typically I'll run the exercise, or someone will run the exercise that's feeling in the groove, and that's the standard. Whatever their time was, that's the standard. So now it's like, all right, cool. That person's on point. That's the standard. Everyone tries to work to that standard now, you know? And we do kind of have an overall standard. Like we have our marksmanship qualification that we run as instructors with our carbines. And then we also have the defensive pistol qualification that we run as instructors. And there is a very definite standard there.
Yes, there is.
You know, and so that now we can look at it as an instructor and say, oh man, I'm really falling apart on this, or I'm really falling apart on that. That's the 1 or 2 things that I need to work on. And that's the whole point of having a standard and having accountability, is not to shame people or tell people they're not good enough. It's to show them this is the weakest area you're at. So work on those weaknesses. If all I ever do is work to my strengths, I'm never going to get any better.
Never.
Got to work on those weaknesses. So what do you have to say about that, John?
I think you pretty well covered it. As an example, yesterday, my wife and I decided to go for a run. She's like, well, how far do you want to run? I was like, She's like, all right, cool. We're doing 2 miles. And I'm like, okay. So even in simple things like that, there is a standard, and I had to finish those 2 miles, and it was terrible. I'm not going to lie. Well, I did it. I finished the 2 miles. I did the 2 miles because if I had gone and run by myself, I'd have run about 1.5 miles because I'd have gotten tired and I'd been like, I don't really feel like running anymore. 1.5 miles, that was good enough. You know, so having that standard actually allows you mentally to push towards something else as well. So.
And you bring up a really great point, actually. One, we kind of overlooked, you know, like a fitness training group, which is important. I work out with someone. You know, my buddy Charlie is the guy I work out with every single week because we push each other. We have similar standards. You know, neither one of us can insanely outperform the other. You know, I don't want to go work out with some, you know, insane Navy SEAL CrossFitter, but I also don't want to work out with someone who's like, I haven't worked out in 5 years. Like, I want to work out with someone who pushes me and you know, I want to be better. So it's kind of something we overlooked, but having a fitness training group is a great example. I work and perform better in fitness.
Oh, yes.
Today, I'm actually wearing my Tough Mudder shirt. I would not do as well in Tough Mudder if I wasn't running with other guys.
No way.
You know what I mean?
Nope.
I do pretty well in those things. And I do pretty well because I've got other guys with me that push me further and make me reach a higher standard. So, you know, that's kind of another good example or another good point to wrap all this up is having that standard, having that accountability makes you want to be better.
Yes, it does.
Having this training group will improve you because you will want to be better for these people. And you will find a group of people suddenly that you can trust. And you can depend on them for so many things outside of the training group. This is so important, especially for like veterans. We have so many veterans that we know who they come home, they don't have the same kind of friends they had before.
Yeah.
I really honestly feel blessed that we have such a good training group in our instructors, because I know I can rely on these guys, and I feel almost the same level of camaraderie that I once loved, because I have this group of people that I know I can rely on.
Yep.
Even though we all come from different walks of life, et cetera. So this is a great way for you to win friends and influence people, right? As Stephen Covey says, this is a great way for you to find people that you can really rely on, and find people that you can trust in other aspects of life as well. So form a training group, find somebody, start finding people, I should say, to work with in whatever it is that you want to improve on. They will help you get better. Just be smart about it.
Yes.
Be safe about it. Consider operational security, consider guilty by association, and always hold yourself to a standard. Always, always look for that accountability. How am I and the people in my group going to become better? Next week we have a guest in the studio. It's Mike from Patriot Defense, small local training company, veteran owned, veteran run.
Nice.
And we're going to have him in the studio to talk about training myths, gun myths, and why misinformation is dangerous, not only to your health, but
to the health of those around you.
Well, to the health of the industry. How misinformation spreads bad things about the firearms and training industry, veterans, etc. So again, training myths, gun myths, and why misinformation is so dangerous. That'll be Mike from Patriot Defense on the show with us in the studio next week. Until then, stay aware, stay safe, and train hard. You've been listening to The Arms Room.
Broad stripes and bright stars through the